Hello my lovelies, and welcome to today's video. My name's Alya and I'm really glad you popped in. So today is a little bit different. We're going to be talking, of course, about eye conditions. Yes, of course, and you've probably seen the title and you know that it's about sun damage, but the difference is that today is not about an eye look. So as you can see, it's done already. I'm going to be doing my skincare and makeup and eyebrows today while I talk to you about the 5 most common things that happen because of sun damage to the eyes and the eye area. And so if you're interested in all of that and to see how I protect my skin and talk about how to protect your eyes against the sun, please do stick around. Okay, of course, I've done my eye look already. I hope you like it. I'm going to be wearing a grey and white dress later on, so that's going to be the eye look to go with that, but it sort of suits what I'm wearing already as well. Now, I use this on my face. If I've shown it before, it's the Young Living Mineral Sunscreen Lotion, SPF 50, broad spectrum, high protection, and the most active ingredient, of course, is the zinc oxide, but because it's got a oily origin, I do believe, I've heard quite a few people talk about this in the pharmacy space as well as in the beauty space, that in an oily suspension, UV protection tends to be more active, but don't quote me, double check that one. But I usually do a really good helping, and I focus on wherever my skin has already got pigmentation. And you'll see already that this particular sunscreen, aside from the fact that it smells divine, it's got a bit of a blue hue to it. So it definitely does have some wonderful nourishing oils within. Before I put on my sunscreen, I did already have my beautiful moisturizer in there, and it's full of, aside from a beautiful moisturizing base, it's full of this dry skin serum, also by Young Living. So if you have particularly dry skin or dryness prone skin or even congestion prone skin, I really highly recommend that product. It has been an absolute lifesaver for me. Even now with masks and maskne all around this horrible acne prone zone of mine, I'm still getting a lot of really good maintenance results with that little concoction. So highly recommend that beautiful addition to any lovely moisturizing base. I use the Kid Sense moisturizer as my base. I just love it. I love the ingredients and I love how good it is on dry sensitive skin. Okay, and as I apply my Savvy Minerals loose foundation, I'm going to talk to you about sun damage. Now, I live in Australia. I don't live in the sunny Queensland or anything like that. I live in Melbourne, where the weather is usually somewhere between dry, windy and humid, but we do get a really big variation in our temperatures, and we get really cold, icy winds, which are, you know, horrible and misleading. You think it's 12 degrees outside, but it feels like -6, that sort of stuff. And then you have days like today where it's about early 20s in the centigrade, but it feels like early 40s and overcast. It's so humid. So you get a really big mixed bag throughout the year, and even throughout the week sometimes, and even sometimes throughout the day. So what does that mean for judging the weather about UV? Now, my rule of thumb is if it's not basically overcast and raining, put your sunscreen on. And even if it's not going to be overcast and raining later, put your sunscreen on. The only time we don't wear sunscreen is probably July, August. Otherwise we tend to, at least on the face, and yeah, at least on the face, I put sunscreen. My kids always get sunscreen and always wear a hat at school. They're also encouraged to wear clothes that sort of cover most of their arms as well. So slip, slop, slap. Now, slip, slop, slap was around even when I was a kid, and that's the campaign against sun cancers or sun-related skin cancers. And they've since added on a few little extras. Nowadays we go by the rules of slip, slop, slap, sleek and slide. Oh my goodness, and that's from the SunSmart website. I highly recommend you check it out if you're interested in knowing a lot more about sun protection. Even if you don't come from a country that is quite as crazy ozone as what we are, you still would benefit from knowing a few little things about sun-related danger, especially for the warmer months. Or if you have snow, you have to remember that on snow and water, the sun reflects back and is double the trouble. So slip is for slip on a protective shirt or clothing, slop on some sunscreen, slap on a wide-brimmed hat that can protect your skin and eyes. Seek is for shade. You have to seek out a nice shady spot if it gets too warm, especially between 10 a.m. and 4 p.m. when the sun is the most sort of dangerous. And of course, slide on your sunglasses. Now that is new. That was not around in my day. You know, kids didn't wear eyewear much really, let alone sunglasses. In my day, if you wore eyewear, there was something particularly wrong with you. And that's terrible. It's a terrible thing that my generation had to grow up with, you know, the whole being teased about having glasses, let alone sunglasses, you know, whereas nowadays, those kids that had to wear glasses, laughing all their way to the elderly bank because their eyes were protected from UV all the time while the rest of us were not. When it comes to makeup products and sun protection, I just never ever trust especially mineral or a loose foundation to be enough, or a bronzer to be enough. I mean, we put on such a thin layer typically of the stuff. So what it's all about is adding on the layers, right? So if you've got an extra layer of sun protection in your foundation, then absolutely amazing, good on you. But it's still never going to quite replace the benefits of a proper sunscreen, especially broad spectrum, especially a 50 plus SPF. So what that means is that we've got basically 3 kinds of UV. We've got UVA, B, and C. C, not so relevant to most people because the ozone absorbs most of it, doesn't really reach us. In Australia, though, we've got a big old hole over our ozone, so some of it does seep through, and that's why, you know, we always are a little bit more extra about our sun protection information, especially to children. But generally speaking, it's not the majority of the UV. Then you have UVB, and that's particularly dangerous for the eyes because UVB can cause solar keratitis. Solar, photokeratitis. Photo referring to the light, and anything that's got kera in it is usually cornea, and titis meaning swelling. Okay, so swelling due to the sun, usually like a sunburnt eye. That's usually temporary. That's usually solved with lubricating and rehydrating and all that kind of good stuff, and can be resolved. But my idea would be to never have to go through that in the first place. So definitely wear your sunglasses, especially if you're on the beach or in the water and things like that, wherever you can. And if you can't, then perhaps something over your head to shield your eyes, or just take regular breaks. So if you're going to be in the water having a bit of fun, not wearing sunglasses, not wearing a hat, then maybe just 20 minutes in and then take time out to dry off and reapply your sunscreen, and definitely wear your sunnies during that time. Then you have UVA. UVA is about 95% of the UV. That's the part we really need to worry about. That's the one that gives us skin cancers as well. And skin cancers are very prevalent on the eyelids. You get a lot of squamous and basal cell carcinomas around the lids. You also can get melanomas on the lids. You can also get cancers in the back of the eye. Typically not sun-related, but they do exist. You can also get melanomas in the retina, in the retinal space, in the choroid, so right behind the retina. Now, all very scary stuff, extremely rare because the eyes really do have a lot of structures in the way to protect us from the sun, and they absorb majority of that terrible ray. One of those structures is your lens, your crystalline lens. And we already spoke about one of the things on this channel that definitely can be as a result of sun damage, and that is cataracts. So cataracts are fairly normal. Most people will get them even from being really, really moderate with their sun exposure. But there will be those who will develop them really, really super early, for example, as a result of their sun exposure, or may have certain complications as a result, or may have a very, very poor experience as a result. For example, if you're, still in a working age and you've already got cataracts, that's going to impact your life so much more than if you're retired, as an example. Or if you're someone who's living a really active lifestyle and suddenly has to go into a rapid decline of needing reading glasses, or something's constantly changing about their vision, that can be dangerous for things like driving, but also that means that you're not as highly functioning in a boardroom or at a computer or on your devices and so forth. So just something to consider as well. I spoke a little bit about cataracts before, so there will definitely be a video all about cataracts up on my channel, available to learn a little bit more about them. They are not a disease at all, and that's what I've called my video on cataracts. They're not a disease. They're just a degeneration of a certain layer that can be replaced, and it's totally doable, and the experience of replacing the thing is not a bad one at all. It's kind of going through it and getting into the process that's a little bit, if you could push it off to your 70s and 80s, I would recommend that. The next layer that absorbs a lot of the UV is a pigmented epithelium, a pigmented layer, which is so busy. It's one of the, if not the most metabolic parts of our body. It's constantly working, it's constantly processing light, it's constantly doing something for our vision. And that's where our rods and cones, you might have heard of the term rods and cones before. And these are little receptor cells that receive colored and black and white light, depending on which one you're talking about, and give us our vision eventually. Now, those rods and cones need light to see, absolutely, but when you overexpose them, they have to work even harder, and they will eventually degenerate. And that's when you get a disease called macular degeneration. Typically happens again when you're 70, 80 or so, but just this week I had a patient with macular degeneration at 53. which is so super scary. This is someone who's still in her prime, you know, she's not quite, just became a grandma, I think it was. Like, she's only just starting her life in that phase, and here she is struck with eye surgery. The other thing is you typically don't have a very high level of health cover when you're young, because you sort of think, well, nothing's going to go wrong with me so early on. You know, things like that, just like I said before, very inconvenient thing. So the way you counteract things like that, so if you've already had a lot of sun exposure, or you just work a job that has a lot of sun exposure, and as much as you try to wear protective gear and sunscreen or whatever, you feel like you might not be getting enough, the way to counteract all of these free radicals, including UV, is to have a really good high antioxidant diet. I know it sounds like everybody talks about diet, and I'm not talking about losing weight. I mean, I'm the last person to say lose weight. That's not what it's about. What I'm talking about specifically is having a really decent amount of antioxidants to fight all those free radicals that are inescapable. They're all around us, and it's just life. But if we can have enough to fight the battle, to win the battle at the end of the day. So we're talking about green leafy vegetables. We're talking about, you know, things like spinaches and whatnot. We're talking about fresh berries. We're talking about high antioxidants. I would even go as far as getting some ready-made products, some sort of antioxidant supplement. If you're not having it in your diet, there are definitely thousands of options out there, like super greens or some other kind of berry concentrate that you can just add to your meals if you are not, you know, that way inclined, and then get it that way. Most supplements these days, okay, I won't say most, a lot of supplements these days are really, really decent quality, and, you know, just speak to your naturopath or health food store representative, and they will be able to help you that way. But the real thing is the best thing. So those are the two really scary ones, because they are internal. And photokeratitis is really scary because it's quite acute. It's sudden, its onset is really rapid, and then of course it goes away, usually. What we don't really talk about in early education with sun damage is pinguicular and pterygium. They're pretty much the same sort of deal in that the conjunctiva does degenerate because of sun damage. The conjunctiva is, you would be familiar with conjunctivitis or pink eye. So that's the same body of cells that produces a lot of our tear film and our protective structures to the outside. So stops us from getting infections if everything is normal. So if it gets damaged, it can't effectively protect our eye from infections. It can't effectively produce tears, and that causes all kinds of issues, including dry eye, which is, sounds like, well, so what if you have a dry eye? Oh my goodness, it is the most obnoxious thing to suffer with, especially if you have it chronically. A lot of people suffer really, really badly, especially later on in life, due to dry eye. And it's not the easiest thing to treat. It's definitely treatable, but it's not always easy. So the best thing to do, of course, is to avoid it if you can. And pinguiculae and pterygium, the main difference about them is their structural difference. So pinguiculae tend to be gelatinous and little pimply type little bubbles that are yellowish in color and come up on the white of your eye, on this clearer part of the conjunctiva on the white. You don't really get them under the lids or anything. They usually happen in the exposed part of the eye, and that's why we know that they happen due to sun damage, because it's where the sun actually does shine. The major difference there is pterygia tend to be elongated in shape, and I've got some wonderful patient photos to show you guys of what they look like that I personally photographed, which is really, really cool, because it's one thing to look them up online, but it's a whole other thing when you have the real deal to look at. Once they encroach onto the cornea, and typically pterygia will, whereas pinguiculae won't, when pterygia do start to grow over the eye and get onto the cornea, like in my patient, what we tend to recommend is for it to be removed, because if it does continue to grow and starts to cover even more surface area of the cornea, first of all, you are risking getting scarring during the removal process. That's the first major thing. The other thing is that once it covers the middle part where the pupil is, you actually won't be able to see anything. So it can potentially cause temporary blindness. And when you do get it over that far and you do accidentally scar it, or it does sort of grow deeper into the cornea and cause scarring upon removal, what do you do then? It's so much easier and so much safer to remove it before it gets across into this line of sight. Ladies and gentlemen, what I do definitely recommend is wearing sunglasses, especially on days where the UV is above sort of 6. I would definitely say wear your sunglasses. Just remember that just because it's overcast, it doesn't mean that the UV is low or it's safe to go out without sun protection. It's so important to always protect the eyes. If you're not someone who likes a dark lens or finds it disruptive, or is sensitive to different color variations in sunglasses, I totally understand that. You can ask for a lighter glass. You can ask for a different colored glass. I would say that polarized is definitely the best by a long shot. But then shortly after that, you've got your transition glasses. They're really, really good. Or just a 400 UV protective Regulus dark glass. Now, darkness doesn't necessarily mean it's better. Darker does not mean better. Darker just means darker. What you need to definitely be sure is of the UV protection. And even clear glasses can be quite UV protectant. So if you're someone who's already got a prescription, you're probably halfway there, if not more. I would, however, recommend transitions anyway, because you don't want scattered light entering your eye either. The other thing you need to remember with sunglasses, it's no good if they're just sitting like this, or what the fashion is now where it sits at the corner of your nose here and it's like a little lip shape or a little heart shape or a little unicorn shape. Not going to do it. You want sunglasses that are going to fully cover not just your eyeball, but up to the bridge. We've got a natural protective bridge on the eyebrow, which is why our eyebrows protrude. It's there to protect us from the sun. Like the Neanderthal brow, it might not look very sort of fashion savvy for today's understanding of beauty, but it is actually very protective. A narrow eye will be more protected from the sun because simple exposure situation. And also you want the sunglass to cover a little bit of the skin underneath the eye up until the cheekbone, up until the ridge here. Again, a prominent cheekbone is there for a kind of protective structure as well, more for trauma, but that's kind of what it's designed for. And if you can sit your glasses just in front of that, that's going to be perfect, because then you are not only protecting the eyeball and the structures within and above, but also you're protecting this really delicate under eye skin, which is not only prone to wrinkles and, you know, freckles and all that sort of sun damage, but it's also really, really highly prone to cancers. Okay guys, I've had to talk really, really fast in this one to try and fit it all in. I hope that it's informative. I hope you like today's makeup component as well. Please do hit like if you did. Head over to Instagram to catch more real life stuff with my boys and my beautiful doggy and all that sort of stuff. If you haven't yet subscribed, please go ahead. Hit that red button. It will turn grey to tell you that you're a part of this creative family, and wherever you are around the world, I hope you're having an amazing time. I hope you're staying safe and healthy and happy, and I can't wait to see you on the next one. Bye!